In this video, I'm going to wrap up my weekish challenge of reading books of authors I was already familiar with. I read 6 books in the last week. One I didn't fully finish because of complications with the font. Of the 6 books, 4 were authors who I had only been introduced to during my latest book adventure. My latest book adventure began when I sort of discovered how much I was going to enjoy trading out of the little free libraries, and how much into reading I was again. So it was sort of like a renaissance of my reading self, who I definitely was younger, and then I am really involved in what I call an adventure, because there's a scavenge, there's a trade, there's some sort of delight and some dopamine hits in the 100% on-hauling and rehauling through either charity shop, rummage sale, but mostly explicitly through the little free library neighborhood book boxes. This author is someone I'm familiar with, and is someone that I loved. Like, it's an author I'm very familiar with, very much loved at a younger age. I hadn't read this particular book before, and I don't have a book to show you from before, because this was one of the 2 authors who I had known from before. I couldn't even necessarily do a comparison, because I can't necessarily give you a catalog of the books I've read from this author. This author came to me well on an extended backpacking trip across Central and South America when I was in my late teens, when I was in my late teens, in the 1990s. And it was just something that other readers were reading and gave to me, that my travel partner was an avid reader of this author, and who I just found at, those bookshelves that you find in hostels or in places that travelers stay. I was interested to see if I'd still like this author, and this particular book that I found was a newer release. I was 2022. This author has recently passed, so just a shout out to the homage and the legacy of this author. And this is also an author that when I find books, often on the reviews, they reference this author. Anyway, without further ado, the author is Cormac McCarthy, and the book is Stella Maris. Okay, about the books that I read in the past by Cormac McCarthy, again, I don't think I can give you a catalog of which was which, because then the movies started to happen. And I think that it's too easy, since it's been since the 1990s, right? Mid-90s till now. So 30 years later, I could conflate. Was it the movie that I watched? Was it the book that I read? It was some combination of both. And giving stage and condition of my life, my reading of them would be so different. I remember this about Cormac McCarthy. I know that a lot of his setting was the desert, and I found his writing to be very appropriate for the desert. Just stark, thorny, what's absolutely necessary sometimes feels like the wind, blew through it and left just what was standing. And as that was my recollection, I think it probably informed the reading of this book. This book is dialogue only. So it's just a dialogue between 2 people. I can see how people would find that not incredibly intriguing at all. And in fact, I could see how people would find Cormac McCarthy's writing style a little bit hard to get accustomed to. I loved it. I loved it right after Anita Desai's really poetic, really sort of light and complex, like that kind of dish that has so many subtle flavors that just kind of layer in. That is Anita Desai. This is stark and I can't say brash, but a bit, really stripped down. Yet the themes are super heavy. Like, I'm in an existential crisis after this book. you know, what is the meaning of life? What is the meaning of spirituality? Who gets to decide who's smart and not? What is the telling that, is the telling that's collectively agreed upon the right telling, or is it some other telling that is actually the right telling and everyone else is duped? Yeah, like, this is the book that you just read pages and you're like, nothing happened, yet why am I still thinking about it? Yeah. Uh, I'd have to say, I can't even say if this is my favorite book, but what I can, of Cormac McCarthy. Again, I have one more on the shelf. It's The Road. So, you know, most of us are familiar with The Road, maybe because of the movie, or if not, the synopsis of the movie. And this like post-apocalyptic scenario is not something that I'm just going to be like on a Tuesday after a hard day of work with a slight headache. Yeah, let me just cozy into this theme. So I'll definitely have to think about when I read The Road. Which was a complete sidebar to this. I have someone in my life who's also a huge Cormac McCarthy fan, and if I'm going to see them somewhat soon, I'll save this for them. The way that their mind works, they're going to love this book. So it would be a great honor and privilege for me to gift this find. I found this out of a book box to them, but I'm also kind of being really like, I just want to I don't want to hold on to things. So it could just be I give the person the recommendation and they go to the library and read it, and then I put this back out into the universe on in the little free library book boxes. And because I liked this book so much, I'm going to kind of be weird about which book box should I put it in, where does this book belong, positioned for the right reader to come along and hopefully find it as precious as I do. I can imagine people not liking this book, to be honest. It gives me that too. But I loved it, and that's kind of a wrap for this last week of reading authors I've already read. It was familiar, but also kind of challenging in that I went outside of my comfort zone, or I gave authors another chance, or I was confronted with challenges that had nothing to do with the authorship. I was introduced to, you know, this adventure, which is a little free library, isn't mine alone. Other people are doing it, as evidenced by a sticker and the Anita Desai book. What a great week. I look forward to next week, which is a bunch of randoms, and they're really just me in the spirit of the commitment I made when I got these books, is that I was going to read them and unhaul them quite expediently. So I'm fulfilling maybe my commitment to these next 5 books for this next week. And I expect it to be a completely different kind of reading week than this one, which ended with this super quick, because it's short and also just dialogue, Cormac McCarthy read.